Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at OnActuate's annual event. We like to recognize and celebrate International Women's Day annually. For anyone who isn't well acquainted with OnActuate, we are a global information technology and consulting firm. At OnActuate, we help growing businesses succeed with tailored Microsoft Dynamics 365, Power Platform, Azure, and Dayforce solutions. And they're all backed by our expert advisory, consulting, and support services. We're all here to recognize International Women's Day, which happens each year on March 8th. It's a day focused on imagining a world free of bias, free of stereotypes and discrimination, a world that's diverse, equitable, and inclusive. This day has been recognized for over 100 years, and for International Women's Day 2025, the theme is Accelerate Action. So today and every day, we encourage you all to celebrate and acknowledge the women in your life, and even more importantly, to find ways that you can accelerate action toward a more equitable world. I think we're all aware of the many reasons why gender equity is so important, but I think it's critical to talk about why it's actually beneficial. Why have gender equity? What benefit is there in ensuring that women are equally represented and have seats at the table? Well, research shows that organizations that are more diverse and inclusive will be more innovative. We gain the benefit of multiple viewpoints. They're more productive organizations. They're more profitable organizations. If you ask me, that alone is a pretty good case for inclusion. But also, and I learned this really recently, current research shows that when women are involved in agreements, we're talking real-life peace talks, peace is 35% more likely to last 15 plus years. If that's not a compelling reason to ensure that we have women at the table, then I don't know what is. And that's why we're here today, so that we can reflect on what can be done when we come together to discuss and get inspired about creating a more equitable world. This is OnActuate's third year hosting the event, and I'm really honored to be part of this. I'm also so happy to be part of an organization where equity is such a critical part of what we do every day. Can I get the next slide? Here's our agenda for today. We're going to host a panel discussion with our amazing guests, whom I'm so excited to talk with. This will last about 40 minutes. But first, I'd like to invite OnActuate's founder and CEO. His name is Sharon O'Roy, and Sharon has been a huge driving force behind our SHE initiative, behind our equity work. He's a true visionary leader in recognizing and supporting action toward equity at OnActuate and in the tech space. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, Alyssa. It's an absolute honor to be here today as we celebrate our third annual Share Her Excellence series in International Women's Day event. That truly reminds us to recognize and uplift and champion the incredible women in the industry. So I really wanted to thank the amazing group of panelists that we have. I know they have crazy schedules, and to share their experiences with all of us here, I think they truly deserve a round of applause. So thank you very much, guys. We truly appreciate your time. In the past, I've also spoken about how I was actually brought up by amazing, strong women in my family and my daughter and my wife, and I've spoken about that. But there's truly two things that I want to touch about today, that one being the elephant in the room. The first one is continuous progress. I think there's a lot of work we know that we have to do to make sure that we have equity in our workforce. But one that truly stands out, and I'm going to share an example with you today. Yesterday, we were in a meeting, myself and Ashish, who's our COO, and somebody reminded us that at a project at a client site, we were given a feedback that we have a male-dominated project team of a couple of members. And that could be a potential reason why we are having some difficulties in the project. So we made a decision at that time that when we are now assigning teams to the project, we look at the skills, we look at the availability, we look at the location, but we don't look at the gender. We don't look at whether we have enough women on that team. And we're going to make a conscious effort from now on to make sure that we have a gender balanced team on not just across the board, but almost on every project if we can. I know it's going to take some time to get there, but it's a clear example of how continuous progress has to be made and small steps have to be taken to make sure that we have parity and gender parity across the organization. Because truly, before yesterday, we were just looking at our organization as a whole and saying, hey, we have 40% or 30% of our staff as women. But that truly doesn't translate to a true parity. So we are making that continuous progress almost every year, making changes. And Alyssa, has highlighted a few of them as well. The second one, which is the elephant in the room, the ongoing rhetoric. I know in the recent months we've seen a wave of backlash against diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and we've all seen the headlines, the debates, the think pieces claiming that prioritizing inclusion is somehow of a distraction or that diversity efforts are unfair. But let me be crystal clear here. We're not conforming to the narrative. Because if you think diversity is a distraction, I think you're clearly mistaken. Diversity in the workforce is one of the strongest assets on what I believe is companies' people balance sheet. In fact, that's what makes OnActuate a true people-first organization. So let's make our stance as an organization very clear. We will not dilute our commitment to diversity and inclusion just because it's a political talking point. We will continue to invest in mentorship, the leadership opportunities, the equitable hiring practices, because we know that a diverse workforce is a stronger workforce. And at OnActuate, we're not going to go backwards. We're not going to give up decades-long work and progress that is being made to clear the roadblocks for women in technology. And we will not be shrinking our commitment. In fact, we are doubling down the future we believe in, where talent is recognized and the voices are heard and the opportunities are open to everybody. And if anyone actually thinks that's controversial, well, let's prove them wrong, not by words, but with the results. So once again, thank you to all the panelists on the group and to every woman in this room, in our organization, and in the technology world. Thank you. Thank you for your resilience, your brilliance, and your leadership. I think the future of technology is much brighter because of the gender parity and the women in the group. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sharon. That is such a great reminder of why we do the work that we do, and I really appreciate your leadership on that. Let's get to it. I've been so looking forward to this event. I've learned a little bit about each of our panelists along the way, and I am ready to get into this discussion. Before we kick off, or I guess as a way to kick off, let's get to know each of our panelists a little bit more. So starting with Chris, let's get to know you. Could you tell us, can I get the next slide? Can you tell us who you are? Maybe include a 1-minute history of your career journey. And can you also tell us a superpower that women bring to the workplace?
Sure, absolutely. Good morning. My name is Chris Clevenger. I am the Director of Human Resources at DuPage County Government. We are the second largest county in the state of Illinois. So a little bit about me. I've been in the human resources field for approximately 30 years. The first 13 years was in a private sector manufacturing company. And then the last 17, I've been here in local government. So along with understanding all the different intricacies of the disciplines within human resources, my main focus has been to work on ensuring that the department continues to be a forward-facing office and creates partnerships with ensuring not only success within human resources and the work we do, but really for the county. So it's a big undertaking. We have about 2,200 people here, but that really has been our focus. And of course, over the last 5 years with all the things in the world, it's been very interesting to keep that focus going, but we enjoy what we do, and we enjoy to see the output from all our hard work in this field.
That's great. And can you think on the top of your head of one superpower that women bring to the workplace?
I do. And I was thinking about that last night. And I think resilience would be the superpower. And just thinking about the last 5 years alone, just seeing the resilience that we do, all the different obstacles that we have faced and are continuing to face even this year, the resilience is what keeps us going. And we see that that is what perseveres us to be successful.
I love that. Katie, let's hear from you. Can you give us a quick introduction, maybe a little bit of your career journey, and also tell us about a superpower that women bring?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me. My name is Katie Meyers, and I am the head of Global Talent Management and Development at Dayforce. Dayforce is a human capital management technology company. So I'm in the tech world now, but a bit about my career background. I actually started my career in the world of HR through financial services, and then I moved into nonprofits. And then most recently, before making the jump over to tech, I was in the sports world. So I started at NBA, National Basketball Association, and then I moved over to MLB, Major League Baseball. So I worked for the corporate headquarters at both of those organizations, and then consulted and worked with a lot of the teams, the clubs around the United States. So and then I made the jump over, as I said, to Dayforce in the tech world, and love the HR industry, and plan on staying here until the end of time, till they kick me out. So one of my thoughts in terms of superpowers is multitasking. Now, I know that we're all trying to focus more and, less is more and simplify, but I'll use myself as an example. A lot of my friends, a lot of peers, and I know a lot of us here on the panel, we also have lots going on in personal lives, right? And I know a lot of you here on this call, we all have, kids, family, aging parents, caretaking responsibilities, neighbors, volunteering, the whole thing, sports, the whole 9 yards. And so just the ability to prioritize, still get stuff done, focus, and then, really feel as though you're making an impact is one of the superpowers that I feel that we all bring to the workforce.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Melissa, let's hear from you.
Yes, good day, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Melissa Libhart, and I'm the Business Applications Sales Leader at Microsoft for our state and local government practice. I've been here at the company for over 30 years. I had my 30th anniversary back in September, which just blows my mind. I started as a marketing intern, and I've basically grown up, and my entire career has been at Microsoft in a variety of sales and marketing positions. Believe it or not, I never moved. I live in Arizona, and I've been able to take on new roles from here. I've always been in field sales. I've had 9 different roles across each of our solution areas. For most of my career, I was on our commercial space. I covered enterprise accounts and mid-market. I've been in leadership for about 23 of those 30 years. And about 8 years ago, I moved into industry, into our state and local government group, which has enabled me to really find a purpose and be mission driven. So in my current role, I lead a team of sales and technical specialists who empower U.S. state and local governments to reimagine their business processes through innovative technology solutions to serve constituents and improve lives. That's where the mission comes in. As far as a superpower, I love that we all have different ones that we're sharing. The one that comes to mind for me is taking ambiguous concepts and transforming them into executable and successful outcomes. For example, building a program from the ground up with little or no direction. I think a lot of us women in our lives, whether it's personal or professional in the workplace, have an innate ability to dig in, put a plan together, inspire others towards a common vision. So that's the superpower I think we all have, and we all can bring about.
I love that. That really resonates with me. Let's hear from you, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Curran. I love I'm gonna say I love all these different superpowers, so I'm excited to talk about that. But I am the CEO and co-founder of Locktivity, which is a third-party risk platform. And I started my career actually in a very different world. I was running a wholesale bakery and then was a GM at Noah's Bagels. And then I shifted into tech. And so it's now been a little over 15 years doing that. And in tech, I've landed myself in a lot of startups. So I've been one of those who wears to that multitasking point, the 150 hats that are. In fact, my first job, my title was Assistant Everything Officer. And if I go back and look, I think she might be here, but the CEO is now the Chief Everything Officer there. But that is, I think that speaks a little bit to some of our superpowers. But I've spent in tech, I found it so fascinating, and I posted this, but about, the 28% of the representation of women in tech, and that kind of blows my mind, but I see it. I've been that woman in the room quite a bit. And so finding your way to be able to make a lot of impact and change, I've, through my career, ended up going and being told, hey, we need an audit, the stock audit. I had no idea what the heck that was. Had to figure out what it was, build it, got into compliance. That led me to security, ended up running security and compliance, my prior company, before deciding to launch out and build Locktivity. So definitely an adventurous career. But really excited to be here. And my superpower, I would say, I love all the ones that you guys said. I would add to that empathy. And from the perspective that I think women are really good at putting themselves in others' shoes, and that can really help build some of the bridges and help guide, really, when you talk about taking these programs and building them from, the ground up. That's part of that process, is really being able to identify what people's needs are and how they might approach it and be able to work with them and benefit everybody.
Those are all really fantastic. Those are great. Thank you all for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing the superpowers. Quickly, my name is Alyssa Morrell. I work for OnActuate. I've been with OnActuate for the past 3.5 years. My career journey, I've had the opportunity to, work with organizations that are building, scaling their HR operations, and it's been such a great journey. I've been in the industry for almost 10 years, and I also think that this will be, they'll just have to kick me out. But I wanted to say that I was going to say empathy as a superpower. So hard agree there, Rachel. But I'll switch gears and I will say problem solving. I think that, women are faced with a lot of we have to wear a lot of hats. We have so many different roles in our lives. And I think that we're so good at multitasking to kind of make things work, but also just finding those really creative solutions to make home life work life work, and deal with the challenges that we all face. So getting into the next question here. So I guess, as we mentioned, oh, sorry. So I guess I want to hear from each of you. What are some of the real challenges you faced as a woman leader, and how did you overcome them? I think we're going to start with
me.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So being in technology for over 3 decades, I faced many challenges that a lot of women in male-dominated industry have faced before, especially 30 years ago. I remember going to customer meetings and I'd be the only woman in the group, which sometimes that still happens. And this did not happen to me, but it's a story that sticks in my mind, where a colleague of mine actually was in a meeting. She was the highest ranking person in there, and the customer asked her if she could go get them a cup of coffee. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully that's not happening now, but I know we have a lot of progress to do to help grow women in technology. So aside from those challenges, really the biggest challenge that I have faced was a personal kind of tragedy that happened in my life. And that was my world shattered when about 5 years ago, my husband went into cardiac arrest and passed away. We had been high school sweethearts. It was just 2 weeks after our 25th wedding anniversary. I was, in a complete out of body experience in another world, in a daze for weeks, trying to comfort. I have two daughters, and they were 13 and 17 years old at the time, trying to deal with my own grief. But I took about a month off of work, and I came back, and I threw myself in my work, which was my coping mechanism. And I was so happy I had the support of wonderful organization. I had an amazing support network, my tribe, both professionally and personally, that helped me embrace and unlock a resilience I didn't even know that I had. So that resilience, definitely a superpower, has hit home for me. And then COVID hit shortly after that, which taught me a lot about leading through adversity and leading with empathy. So I've hit on a fair amount of these that we've been talking about. And so this experience, while obviously I would prefer have not to gone through it, I do think it has made me a better leader. And I mean, the good news is I'm thriving. My daughters are thriving. They're both in college. One's about to graduate from the University of Hawaii. My other one's at a freshman year at Arizona State University. And I don't take a single day for granted. And I try to model for my girls, for my team, for those around me, to live life to the fullest and enjoy the journey.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure it's not easy, but that's really powerful. Thank you.
I made it through without tears. That's my accomplishment for the day.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to share any, real challenges you faced as a woman in leadership? Okay, we can move on to the next question. So this year's IWD theme is accelerating action. Thinking about the places you've worked and what you've seen, what specific actions or strategies do you believe have the most significant impact on speeding up, accelerating progress towards gender equity?
I'm happy to jump in for that one.
Please do.
Yeah. So I come very, very similar situation in terms of Alyssa with the tech industry. I come from the sports industry, as I mentioned earlier, which is predominantly male as compared to female. So, one tip for speeding up progress towards that gender equality, as you mentioned, Alyssa, one tip that I'd recommend, I know it sounds so basic, but don't be shy to raise your hand. We have to remember that we all have so many great ideas, and oftentimes, we are, myself included, a little hesitant to share something or, be that person to be the first one to raise your hand in the room. So make sure that you make your voice known, raise your hand, share that opinion, share that idea. There were many, many, many times where I personally was the only female and oftentimes the youngest in the room when I first started my career. And though it was intimidating a variety of different times, eventually I had this mindset shift, and someone actually said it to me, that I felt as though I was now there on behalf of all women across the organization, and then frankly across the sports world too. When I had that mindset shift and I thought, I'm actually here speaking on behalf of all of us, not just myself, it gave me more confidence because I realized it wasn't just about me. It was more about representation of everyone. It was making sure that I'm representing properly and successfully the voice. So my tip is, if you have that seat at the table, which I know I was fortunate and lucky enough to have it, but if you have that seat at the table, use it. You don't want to walk out of the room and say, shoulda, coulda, woulda, I wish I would have, mentioned this or mentioned that. Use it, be confident, and we're all learning together. So that would be one tip that I would recommend to others.
On behalf of women everywhere, thank you for being that voice.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any tips or strategies that you'd like to share?
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
We'll trade. I was going to say, I think kind of similar to that, standing up and not being shy to share that voice. I think just not being shy to stand up and recognize your own value, that it's right to fight for yourself. It's right to stand up and speak your mind. And that, I don't know that this is only for women, but certainly a common thing for women is that you get this feeling that you are this only person in the room. You don't want to stand out or speak or have to fight that louder voice. And actually another story that this one's not mine, but that I loved in one of the conversations I've had was a woman who talked about being in the room at the table with all men, and the voice is just getting louder and louder and louder. And for her, she's like, I don't want to yell to talk here. And she found a voice across the way that she made eye contact and just started to talk about the topic they needed to. And people came down to want to hear what that conversation was. And so, don't be shy to talk, and also just be yourself. But
I think that's great. Yeah, not having to maybe conform and fit into that competitive, environment that's happening, and just be yourself and use your own voice. That's really great. Any other tips or strategies, actions that can speed up progress towards gender equity before we move on?
I just had a quick one. I think it kind of builds on Katie, but just be an ally, right? I mean, allyship I think is so critical and critically important. So we're banding together. We can all be stronger as one. Many of us have probably had situations throughout our career where you feel like you're competing with women in the workplace. But I'm hoping we can change that, and everyone just be allies to each other, and be a voice for others if you're not in the room as well.
So important, definitely. Let's move to the next slide. So I'm really curious what you think as to what challenges still exist for women in the workplace. Rachel, why don't you kick off this one?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. It's interesting. I was doing a little bit of reading actually on this one, on this topic as we were coming in here. And I personally look and notice that there's still the fact, especially I work in tech. So often you are the only woman in the room or one of few. And I think that there's something really important about women helping each other out and lifting each other up, and really even doing that for anyone. I think it's a partnership. And that goes to some of the things that, as being a woman in the workplace, I guess there's a few things that I've chatted with people about, and it got brought up earlier about the fact that multitasking, that, women are, you've got kids, you've got chores at home, you've got all these things that you're doing. And there's still a world that is changing, I will say. It's changing, and I love seeing it change pretty rapidly, but where women are the ones who are expected to be the ones going home, taking care of the kids. And one of my colleagues talked about her husband being told that he's not, when they had babies and they're, in the hospital, and her husband has to go to work. She gets the time off, but he's got to go to work. And that puts a lot of pressure on both of them, that he's not able to be with the family. And then she's expected to still show up at work and grow her career, but be the one who's, home. And that sort of misunderstanding or different set of expectations, I think, is a challenge. But something that I think is really interesting is how the younger ones, I would say the Gen Zers, I'm older than them. I read something that said 50% of them, of the girls, I will say, women, not the men, believe that women are not going to get the management roles, that men are going to be prioritized over them. I think just that belief system is really kind of scary, that we have come a really long way. And I think believing that you can get that job, going and applying for that job, supporting whoever's, there. And it's interesting that it's in the younger generations see that more than some of us who are a little bit older than them. And so I think those perceptions are also something that are a real challenge in the world. So a whole lot of things, but I think that that's something that is, to me, probably the most important thing is how we view ourselves and what our expectations are. And I think that's something that I know in my own career, I have underserved myself in not demanding to be paid for the work I'm doing. I've come in and felt like I'm not quite enough. I don't have that experience, or I don't have that particular degree, or whatever it is. And I'm sort of undervaluing myself and not demanding to be paid for actually what I am doing for the business and what the impact I am having. And that goes to that level that I see that, younger generation not recognizing that they're going to be able to get those roles and that they are valued in the workplace. I want to change that. I think that's something that's really important.
That imposter syndrome is so real. And I think we've all seen that statistic where women tend to only apply for the jobs that they're 100% qualified for, whereas, perhaps men are applying for the ones that they're 80% qualified for. And yeah, I think I really like what you said. I think that's really important. And, I think lifting each other up, you mentioned that as well. It's so critical. And thanks for mentioning that. Does anyone else want to mention any other challenges that they see before we move on? All right, let's jump to the next slide then. All right. How do you encourage boldness and action in women who may feel hesitant to step into leadership roles? Maybe Katie, could we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my favorite quotes of all time is "Bloom where you're planted." Someone shared this with me a couple of years ago and it really stuck. I have it pinned up behind my screen here. And what it means is bloom where you're planted means say yes to everything and embrace where you are in that very moment. I'm guilty of it. What's next? What's next? What's going to be down the road? I really encourage everyone to take the time to think about how they can bloom where they're planted at the current moment. So whether that's a new position or a new project or a stretch assignment, working with someone, take advantage of the volunteer opportunities or grabbing coffee with a friend. Every single one of those opportunities that you've had to bloom where you're planted has led you to, as it says on here, step into that leadership role. If you really embrace the time, embrace the challenge, embrace the different things that are on your plate, you are setting yourself up for success to be able to step into that leadership role. Everything is a learning lesson and teaches you something new. And oftentimes, having the job that you don't like or doesn't resonate with you, doesn't challenge you as much, is just as critical as having those jobs that do challenge you, because you've also then learned, back to the point earlier when someone was speaking about empathy, you then, when you're in that leadership role, you know what it's been like, you know how it felt to, overcome a challenge or work on a hurdle together, and you'll be that much more of a successful leader in that role. So that would be one of my tips to encourage boldness and action. You've set yourself up for success, you've learned, you've bloomed where you're planted, and then you'll be that much more effective in your role as a leader, or even if you decide to not be a leader, just whatever role really challenges you and gets you out of bed each day.
That's fantastic. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I love that. I would like to comment on that. And I wrote that down, by the way. So thanks for that tip. What a great quote. I think one of the key ways to encourage boldness and action is to model it. Seeing strong women in action who are articulate, who communicate confidently, know how to handle objections, demonstrate courage, and inspire, others. I think those are all great opportunities to help women see what it's like and encourage them if they're being hesitant. So, my advice would be go out of your way to invite other women to job shadow you, to attend your meetings, etc. Challenge and encourage them to do more than they ever thought possible. Provide them that ongoing support and coaching, and be their biggest cheerleader.
I'm all about concrete actions, and those are some really great ones. Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. All right. What advice would you give to organizations looking to create environments where women leaders thrive? How do we pave the pathways to leadership? Maybe Christine, could we start with you?
No, thank you. Great. Yes. I would say with creating a pathway for it is not to leave any stone unturned, meaning don't close any doors. Allow a person to go into, whatever activity or steps they need to do to become that leader. Let them create their path to that. One other thing, couple things that organizations can encourage and support is allowing women to create networks. I belong to an HR pro group of local counties that we talk about our challenges, our initiatives, our, tips for each other. And that helps build that network knowledge that you can bring back and be stronger and provide the best options and services to your team and to the organization. And then also having the organization embrace their strengths, just the qualities and strengths that leader brings to the organization. And some of the superpowers I hear, I think are a lot of the strengths that a lot of women leaders have and possess, and for an organization to embrace that and support that would, I think, be strong paths to seeing those leaders arise and be very successful in their path.
Those are great points. Yeah, I really like that. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I don't know if this quite fits the question, but just kind of stemming from what you just said, Christine, something else that I read this blog that just kind of was eye-opening for me, that was about how women kind of flock to what they called it the glue. They see these kind of gaps in things and they go and solve. They connect the two people together. They plan, I don't know, even they're the one who goes and books the bus for taking people to wherever we need to go because nobody thought about that piece or whatever these things, but it's what they call the glue to keeping everything together. And I think that when you're talking about building those paths and recognizing the value, starting to not just say who closed the most deals or who produced the most code or what have you as how you're promoting, but recognizing the impact that people are having on the business and really shifting that conversation. I think it's so valuable. And it just like I said, when I read it, I was just like, oh, right, that's my life, right? Like it just was a really eye-opening. So I think as much as we can help bring visibility, and several of you are in HR, so it's a great place to do that, to those parts of what people are bringing to a business that maybe aren't as measurable in these, KPIs that are out there. So
it's so true, yeah, because if you take those things away, I mean, it falls apart if you don't have the glue, right? Thank you both. Those are great comments on, the importance of networking, the importance of kind of, bringing things together. Let's go to the next question. So what changes would you like to see in workplace policies to better support women at all career stages? And maybe we can start with Chris.
So I think that with policies, in different stages in the career, one that comes to mind that we actually worked on in the last year was kind of maybe what I would refer to as our emerging professionals. Maybe they don't have, 20, 25 years of industry experience yet, but they are coming in and they're coming in strong. And one thing that we began back in November to offer was a paid parental time policy. So it allows for new parents or adoptive parents to have 12 weeks of paid time off for the birth and bonding or adoptive bonding for the employees. And we have actually offered it to both the woman and the partner, the other parent of the baby or child. And, in that retrospect, it allows them, because they may not have all the time off planned and available to be paid. And, they may not be able to afford to take an unpaid leave. In respect to that, having the other partner of the parent also allowed to do that supports the woman as well. So, we feel that takes that off the table of concern, that they can focus on what they need to, but then know that their job is here. And when they come back, feel supported, and they're put in a position where it's not a hardship financially. And we're mindful of that because we know they have a nice long career ahead. And we feel that policies like that, and that's just an example of an emerging one, but there can be ones in the different periods of time and as we progress on in our career of needs. But that's one that we've kind of focused on because they are sometimes our newest workforce staff. And it's one way we can support and then allow them to feel confident when they come back.
That is so impactful. I'm sure that goes a long way for your staff. Does anyone else want to comment on policies that could better support women at any stage of their career? I really like flexibility as one. I think that's one of the most important ones for me, and I see that with a lot of friends, not just, ones that are parents of small children, but ones that are perhaps caregivers or just even really involved in the community. Let's move on to the next question. So, what's one small yet impactful action that anyone in the audience can take today to help accelerate women's equality? Melissa, let's hear from you.
Sure. So before I get to the action, I'll just say that I believe both mentorship and sponsorship are essential for accelerating women's equality. So from a mentorship perspective, that helps provide the foundation of skills and knowledge and confidence. I love mentoring, especially those that are earlier in career. When I see those on my calendar for the week, I get excited because they give me energy, and I probably learn as much from them as they do for me. So the one action you can take is to seek out a mentee or a mentor today if you don't have one. But then just the sponsorship piece, I think, is really important as well, to open up doors. If, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, you to be an advocate for somebody that's maybe not in the room, or just to make sure you're putting them forward for new projects, or whether maybe it's a promotion, maybe it's a new job, etc. I think that part is critical too. So together with the mentorship and sponsorship, I mean, those are both ways to provide a robust support system for women in the workplace, and they both address different facets of career growth and help women thrive in their roles.
So important. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I think I would just double down on that, being the advocate for the person who's not in the room. And I think that's important in leadership, regardless of whether your employee that you're bringing up is male or female. But when fewer women are in that room, that's really important that you're giving that voice. And I think always, if you're accrediting your team, it makes you look good if your team is good, right? There's something really great about giving that credit, but you're also giving that voice where they're hearing that name again and again and again, right? And so that's building them up, that they will come back and hear that credit. It's building a good relationship with that person. It's helping build them up. So I appreciate that, Melissa. Definitely agree, and just reiterate that that's a really valuable thing to do always.
I'll chime in too from a talent perspective, Rachel. We often say at Dayforce, the exporters of talent are recognized, and we want to continue recognizing them. Of course, everybody wants to hold on to those on their team. They're really great, but the who has developed and pushed their people up and out to other functions, or to take on other stretch assignments. One other thing that I would add is we all get a lot of LinkedIn requests and emails, and I know that we get busy, and I'll get back to it, tomorrow, the next day is kind of what we think, but then we forget and time goes on. So I would say one other thing that everyone could do today is, when you do get that LinkedIn message of someone saying, wow, you had a great career journey, I'd love to hear more. Or if you admire someone who's had a really great career journey, don't be shy to reach out and just learn more and continue making those connections across your industry or across the globe.
All very good advice. And I love that idea of just bringing people up alongside you. I think that's just so important. Unless there are any final thoughts, this brings us to the end of the panel portion. Thank you again to every one of you. I've learned a lot today. I've been taking some notes here, as you can see. And it's been really great to hear all your different perspectives, just from, your vast pool of knowledge and experience that you've had. So thank you. Thank you. I've been so happy to be a part of this with you. And the superpowers, I love that. I think that, we as women in the workplace do possess so many of those things, and it's so important to benefit from those and allow those to shine. I did want to say a few words in closing. As we mentioned, the theme of International Women's Day this year is Accelerate Action. So I really like this phrase. I think it's so important because it captures the call to change so succinctly, because really accelerate action is a set of instructions. It's take action and do it faster than before. Can I get the next slide? So what can we do? We have heard some amazing, really actionable things. I hope that everyone in the audience can, has been kind of taking note and can perhaps bring those to the places where you work and help, create part of the change. I think that, here at OnActuate, we do take significant steps to promote gender equity in the workplace, in our own workplace. And I think that that can spread to the greater tech space. As Sharon said, we're open to having those discussions. We can hear the criticism and we can take action to change it. There's a lot of things that we do really formally to help promote that gender diversity. We have an incredibly flexible workplace that works for families and caregivers in a really real way. We have an internal mentorship program that's designed to help grow the leadership capabilities of our team. And in our leadership team, another area where women are notoriously underrepresented, I'm proud to say that we have 40% female representation. So, I think we're beating that national average by a lot. And I just want to say again, as Sharon expressed so well, we don't shy away from the discussions. It's so important to find the examples where you can create change and take action. So I'd like to hear from the audience really quickly, if you can, in the chat. I'd love to hear any action, big or small, that you may have taken. It could be personal setting, professional setting, that has helped accelerate action towards gender equity. So if you want to, in the chat, again, just any action that you've seen taken, or maybe action you've taken yourself. Oh, I like this. You have a mentor and a sponsor. That's really good. Another mentor. That's amazing. Yeah, mentorship, so critical. I think we can be shy to reach out and kind of start those relationships. But I think for anyone who's considering, being a protege or a mentee, whatever you want to call it, I think that just know that the mentors benefit just as much from the relationship. So keep those going. Does anyone else want to comment on that? We'd love to hear what you have to say. Oh, mentor, yeah. DEI committee, those are great. That's fantastic. A women's retreat for bonding and sharing ideas. I love that. Co-leader to a new Dynamics user group. Created a leadership training that focused on promoting women. These are excellent. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for sharing those. That's really great. So, in my eyes, the steps that we can take, there's really three. First, do no harm. Don't be part of the problem. Part of that is the second step, which is intervene. If you see something, say something. Use your privilege, recognize your power, and stand up and empower those around you. Call people to the table. Allow people to step into those stretch assignments and grow. But really, if you see something that seems unjust, you have to be willing to step up and say something, and be the change, be allies. Attending events like today is a great step. I think it just shows everyone's commitment to learning and everyone's commitment to showing support for International Women's Day. And I thank you all. That brings us to our closing. So thank you again for being present, being with us. Thank you from all the panelists. And thank you to everyone who was involved in planning and putting together this event. We appreciate you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.